There was a study done by the UW that found that there is widespread meth and fentanyl contamination on surfaces and in the air on public transit, both when they, swabbing inside buses, swabbing inside trains. And I don't understand how anyone could spin that in a positive light, but apparently some government officials and employees have found a way to do so because they are so eager to disagree with me. Let's get to it in our segment on Freakin' Believable. Okay, so I'll just revisit the story quick. There was a study done by the University of Washington, and they went to several transit area agencies along Western Washington and also down in Portland, and they collected, samples from seats and steering wheels, and they even collected airborne samples, which I kind of want to know how that works. Like, do you take a little tube and you're just like, and just lock it in there? Anyway, scientists are interesting to me. And their findings were pretty stunning. I wouldn't say surprising, but pretty stunning. They found UW researchers analyzed the findings from 78 air samples and 102 surface samples collected from transit vehicles. Of the 78 air samples, 25% had detectable levels of fentanyl and 100% had detectable levels of meth. Of the 102 surface samples, 46% had detectable fentanyl and 98 had detectable meth. Detection of fentanyl or meth, they noted, does not mean it poses a health risk to operators or the riding public. However, they explicitly said, rightfully so, in this UW study that they couldn't rule out long-term health implications because they hadn't studied it long enough. They weren't plucking hairs out of drivers who'd been driving for 10 years and seeing if they've got, meth in their system or whatever it was. And so there is certainly information we don't know about the long-term health implications, but they cannot rule out, obviously, this is common sense. If someone's riding a bus to and from work every single day, if they're driving a bus for 40 hours in a work week, you cannot tell me that being exposed both on surfaces and in the air to meth and fentanyl wouldn't have some sort of health implications on them. You can't rule that out, and UW is not ruling it out. So anyway, I pointed out on the show earlier this week how over the weekend, King County Metro spun it in the most positive light they possibly could. They said in their tweet, in a first-of-its-kind study, the UW released an analysis of drug, smoke, and residue samples collected on transit vehicles. Health officials say the levels are, quote, extremely low, and riding transit remains safe. To which I thought, you can't say that it is safe. UW has said they don't know the long-term implications of it. And even if, I'll get to that in a moment. What I made the point earlier this week is we've been preached to our entire lives about the impacts of secondhand cigarette smoke. As someone who's never smoked a day in my life, the smell of cigarette smoke sickens me. And I believe everything that we've been told about the negative health implications of secondhand cigarette smoke. And you mean to tell me that secondhand exposure to meth or to fentanyl isn't something we should be deeply concerned about? And we had pointed out that just a few days ago, over in Forks, there was a guy who was arrested and charged with drug endangerment because his 18-month-old was found in a room with meth smoke. John Robinson of Forks, charged in Clallam County Superior Court, were arrested after a child was found in a bedroom filled with what turned out to be meth smoke. And now he's charged with a Class B felony. He could spend 10 years in prison and a $20,000 fine. Rightfully so. Because common sense tells us that being exposed to smoke from an illicit drug, exposed to, surface touching that has residue from an illicit drug, common sense tells us that's not a good thing. We put people in prison for stuff like that when they exposed kids to it. And you don't think that we have parents with kids riding public transit and you want to try to spin the news that, 100% of air samples have meth in it and a lot of them have fentanyl? And so it just seemed very odd to me. Now, it gets even worse because today, why I was fiercely tweeting today, the spokesperson for King County Executive Dow Constantine took issue with the segment I did earlier this week, which I had sent out on X this morning, calling out King County Metro for trying to spin this in some sort of, not so bad light. So he shares my story and he says, If you don't want to add the context of how much was measured, here it is. And then he goes on to go in excruciating detail, includes a little graphic talking about a nanogram per cubic meter is 1/1,000,000th of a gram in a 3-foot cube. At the high end, study found 2.32 nanograms. At the low end, 0.003 nanograms. The smallest grain of sand weighs around 350 nanograms. Chase Gallagher, I don't care. I don't care. Think about this for a second. You have a government official so eager to disagree with me, so eager to dunk on me, that they're going to try to downplay and excuse the widespread detection of illicit drugs on public transportation. And as soon as I said that to him, why are you wasting your energy? It shouldn't be excused in any amount, at any level. You know what he did? He deleted his tweet. Oh, you don't want to stand by what you said, what you did? Like, I'm sorry, if you entered the ring, you're not going to call me out and not expect some sort of response. And that's all I said is, listen, as the staff of an elected leader, why are you bothering trying to downplay something that is obviously so bad? All I want to hear from King County Metro, all I want to hear from elected leaders is, this is terrible. It's bad that they even had to do the study. There's a reason the study was done. It was because things had gotten so bad. It was because bus drivers and riders complained about the environment and the drug smoke and the toxic nature of what's happening on our buses and trains. There's a reason they had to do the study in the first place. It's bad enough they had to do it. Yet here you are arguing with me the minutia of how many nanograms per cubic foot were found. I don't give a damn. Meth was detected in 100% of airborne samples. It was detected in a lot, 98% of surface samples. And there was also a lot of fentanyl detected as well. If you really cared about, these are the same people who preach public transportation and yay, people who ride buses and trains, and boo, people who ride in their cars. Well, I can tell you what, I'd much rather ride in my car, even at 5-something per gallon per gasoline, than sit on one of your meth smoke fueled buses or trains. And how much disdain does that show for the people, the hardworking people who drive our buses under incredible circumstances, faced with individuals who pose a risk to them every single day on certain routes? How much disdain does that show for them that you would say, well, it's not that much? Oh, we're just talking nanograms per cubic foot. It's enough for UW to have done a study. And the only thing I want to hear you do is come out and say, this is unacceptable. We want our trains and our buses to be safe, clean places for everyone. And any detection at this level is absolutely unacceptable, and we're going to do better. That's all I want to hear from you, not excuses. The excuses are frankly unbelievable, especially since you're making excuses just because it's something I'm speaking out about, because you're that ideologically driven. Get a freaking grip.